Hello, good evening and welcome. I'm Karima Brown. You are watching the very first installment of Political Exchange. We're now joined in Cape Town. We have a business leader, Mr. Gareth Ackerman. He's the chairman of Pick n Pay. His question, of course, relates to the issue around food security. Mr. Ackerman.
Good evening, Mr. President.
Good evening.
The question I really would like to ask you, which is changing the subject totally, is that there's been a lot of debate in South Africa and conflicting messages coming from the government and your various coalition partners about nationalization of land, land redistribution and land tenure. But there does not appear to be much discussion or solid thinking from within the government or your partners on the issue around food security. We believe this is a really critical issue for the region, and we would like to know really what are your government's plans in respect of food security and providing assurances and support to our farmers, and particularly making sure that there's affordable food for the population of South Africa. If you look at the last couple of days, the US is now going into drought and there could be severe shortages of grain. Fortunately, we had a good crop this year. But I do think it's a big, big issue and something that we need to get some clarity and leadership on.
In fact, that issue is being discussed. The issue of food security is a continuous item on the agenda. Maybe it did not feature very prominently in the policy conference, partly because there were other issues that took the priority. Is an issue that we are dealing with. There are programs that are looking at how do we deal with this issue of food security. In fact, it's not just in South Africa only. We are discussing it jointly with the region as to how do we deal with this issue. We are interacting with the farmers to discuss that issue. So it's an issue that is uppermost in our priorities. It's not the issue that we have forgotten about. We talk about it. I think we have plans as to what do you need to do. Part of the issues that we are dealing with, for an example, on the land issue, partly they are to address that. How do we make our land more productive? And how do we increase the participation of people in terms of agriculture, more land, so that they work on the land, and the aim is to create the food security. So it is the issue that is uppermost in our programs.
Mr. Ackerman, I understand you have a second question.
Well, it's more a follow-up to that than a second question. Mr. President, with the land restitution program, a huge amount of land has been taken out of production in this country, and the amount of food that's being produced has been reduced over the last couple of years. And added to that, there's been a huge amount of export of food out of South Africa, both to Europe and to Asia and to other parts of the world, all of which is reducing the amount of food available for South Africa and is going to result in food prices going up if there's a drought in other parts of the world. We understand that there's a policy issue from the government, but we really wanted to understand how is the government going to get its hands around it to make sure we get some practical application to the policy that is being put forward.
Well, there is a green paper that has emerged from the Rural Development Department to deal with the issue of land, which is crucial in terms of the production of food. We are also realizing that the method that we had adopted earlier, there were no follow-throughs in terms of ensuring that the land that was, for an example, bought for the people who needed land, how they were followed in terms of how to utilize the land. We realized that some of the land that was taken away became not productive. The policies that we are now coming up with are to encompass all of that as to how are we going to ensure that even when people get the land, even if it is their own, how do we help them to ensure that the land do not reduce its capacity to produce, but we are able to make it to be even more productive. And there has been an agreement between the emerging farmers and the old experienced farmers that we must work together with the government. We are working towards emerging with that. I'm sure when the green paper becomes the policy that comes out, it will be able to articulate all of these. But there are programs that are going on at this point in time, because there is high consciousness that in fact South Africa, that used to export, it is importing more food, and we must deal with that. And I think there's a general agreement that we've got to resolve that issue.